Please have roll call by our city clerk, Ms. Caldwell.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Silva.
Present.
Mayor Villegas Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Cardenas.
Here.
And Councilmember Sanders.
Here. If you could all please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we come this evening with our heads bowed and our hearts humble, coming with complete submission to your will. Lord, we just ask that you would intervene tonight and help us as we deliberate the issues that are so important to this community. Lord, we just ask a special blessing of comfort for the Urena family. Pat Urena, mother, passed away, and we're just asking special comfort for that family. Lord, we ask special comfort for families that have lost loved ones throughout this city. Lord, we also ask special blessings upon those who've paid the ultimate price. Lord, we ask that you bless those who are homeless, hungry, and all of those who are in the sound of my voice. And then when we have done all that you have assigned our hands to do, we ask that you would save us someplace in your kingdom. Amen.
The El Centro City Council met in closed session today from 11:30 for quite a chunk of time. We'll have a report out now by our city attorney, Ms. Becker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On a motion by Councilmember Silva, second by Councilmember Cardenas, the City Council met in closed session at 11:32 a.m. All council members were present, with Councilmember Sanders arriving at 11:35 a.m. With regard to the unfair practice charge listed on the agenda, a report was given for information only with no action to report. Reports were given to Council on the 3 anticipated litigation items listed on the agenda. 2 reports were given for information only with no action to report. Alex Wells, the Chief Financial Officer of El Centro Regional Medical Center, and Leticia Salcido, City Finance Director, participated in one of the informational reports. With respect to the 3rd report, direction was given to staff with no final action to report. Norma Villacana, Community Development Director, participated in this report. Council met with its labor relations negotiators, Ruben Duran, City Manager, and Terry Brownlee, Human Resources Director, concerning labor matters for all department heads, unrepresented units, and bargaining units. There is no action to report, but direction was given to staff. Leticia Salcido, Finance Director, also participated in the report. Closed session concluded at 2:04 p.m. with Councilmember Silva excusing himself from closed session at 1:42 p.m. And that concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. Any modifications or corrections? Very good. We'll move on to presentations and announcements by the mayor. Items 1A and B are in celebration of our National Fair Housing Month in the city of El Centro. So at this time, who is here representing Inland Fair Housing? If you could please step to the podium, introduce yourself, and then what I would like to do is read this proclamation, and then we'll move forward with the really cool part of the agenda, which is our coloring contest.
All right. My name's Amber Somerville, and I'm Media Coordinator with Inland Fair Housing and Mediation Board.
We're very, very pleased to have you here representing Inland Fair Housing. You folks do an amazing job for us, for our community. It's been a very beneficial relationship for our community, and you've assisted a lot of families, a lot of people here, and we appreciate your efforts.
Our pleasure.
And in acknowledgement of that, I have a City of El Centro proclamation, National Fair Housing Month, April 2014. Whereas fair housing is a right emphasized by the United States Congress, beginning with the Civil Rights Act of 1968 and the amendments of 1988, and whereas 2014 marks the 46th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing because of race, color, religion, sex, age, handicap, familial status, national origin, or personal traits, beliefs, or characteristics that are unrelated to the rental or sales of property. And whereas the City of El Centro has engaged with the Inland Fair Housing and Mediation Board's Fair Housing Program in a successful public-private partnership with housing industry associations in supporting fair housing laws, And whereas the City of El Centro supports and advocates for equal housing opportunities, as these rights are vital to ensuring community wellness and enhance the quality of life for our residents. Now therefore, I, Cheryl Villegas Walker, Mayor of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2014 as National Fair Housing Month in the City of El Centro. So, we will come down once maybe you introduce your contestant winners, and we'll have one big group picture.
Sounds great. All right, well, since the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968, which prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of housing, we've been celebrating April as Fair Housing Month, and this happens nationwide. Fair housing is the principle that every person should have an equal opportunity to obtain whatever housing they choose, as long as they can afford it, and live free from discrimination or harassment in their housing. This year, in honor of Fair Housing Month, we hosted a Dare to Be Fair coloring contest, and the goal was to teach children about the principles of inclusive communities in which any person can live regardless of their personal characteristics. We were pleased to receive 149 entries to this coloring contest, children ages 4 through 12 throughout the city. And tonight, I have the honor of presenting certificates and prizes to the top awardees of this contest. Before I do that, I'd like to thank our coloring contest judges. We have 3 of them here today. They had the difficult job of picking out of those 100 and almost 150 entries. So I want to thank Marcela Piedra for judging, Liz Cecilia, and our special guest judge, Mayor Cheryl Villegas Walker. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. We also want to thank Dollar Tree and Union Bank, who provided some donations for the contest, as well as the El Centro School District, who helped us to distribute this. El Centro school teachers brought us stacks of coloring contest entries, and it was really exciting for us. The coloring contest was judged in 3 age brackets, so I'm going to call up the age brackets individually. We'll start with age 4 through 6. These were judged on their originality and creativity. All the first prize winners are going to receive 2 tickets to the El Centro Day at the Park on June 21st. That's a more than $60 value. And then second place winners will get a $25 gift certificate to Chuck E. Cheese. And finally, we have some honorable mentions who are getting a $5 gift card to Dairy Queen. And you also can have the opportunity to look at these entries. They're back in the back of the room tonight. They'll also be on display at City Hall for the remainder of the month. Okay, I'm going to bring up our winners. So award winners who are here, when your name's called, if you could please come forward, and you can feel free to bring your parents as well for the picture. And then we'll give you your prize, and we'll take a picture once everyone from the category is up here. So we'll start with age 4 to 6. Receiving an honorable mention for the age 4 to 6 category, we have Kaylin Yepes. Kaylin, can you come up? In second place, we have Valeria Moreno. And in first place, we have Alan Silva Sandez.
Yeah.
Wow, styling.
All right, for the age 7 to 9 category, for honorable mention, we have Soleil Rios. In second place, we have Samantha Moyes. And in first place for age 7 to 9 category, we have Mila Walsh. Last, we have the age 10 to 12 category. For honorable mention, we have Brianna Romero. In second place, Ernest Ibarra. And in first place, Carolee Hargi. All right, well, thank you. Congratulations to all the winners. To celebrate Fair Housing Month, we've also been distributing these blue bracelets that you see. I see some of you have them on. And so we encourage you to take one of those tonight, celebrate with us the progress we've made in the 46 years since the passing of the Fair Housing Act, and our commitment to continue to dare to be fair in our efforts to end housing discrimination in our communities. Thank you very much.
Amber, could you repeat who received awards but is not present here?
Only one we have, Soleil Rios is not here.
She arrived just a little bit late, so
right.
she is here. Yeah. I'm hoping that we could have Liz, as you're getting people together, but also Marcella come up and talk a little bit about the experience. It took us over an hour to go through and decide who was going to be the winners. It was really a lot of fun, a lot of talent in this room. Marcella, would you like to comment?
Kids got squeeze it. All in the picture.
Yes, good afternoon. Just want to thank all the children. Having 149 pieces of artwork to look at wasn't an easy job. It's really commendable. Obviously, the winners, what they did is in the back, and we're going to have it on display at City Hall. But it wasn't easy selecting the winners that you have here before you this afternoon. And so for the children, I really admire your talent. I'm glad that you participated in this event. Fair housing is very important to us as a city, so we really appreciate the kids really putting the effort. The parents, thank you for your support, and obviously Inland for coordinating, and of course the mayor for participating in this event as well. So it wasn't easy, but very, very happy that we were able to have all these children participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have council come down as well. Done a lot of really fun things as mayor, and that was probably one of the highlights. That was really cool. At this time, we'll move forward with our scheduled public comments. We have two this evening, and the first is an annual presentation by IVEDC, followed by an AT&T project update report. So, Mr. Kelly, nice to see you.
Good evening, Mayor Walker,
El Centro City Council. I do have some handouts I'd like to present to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity for being here today and give a report to the City Council. First of all, I think you know that our role in economic development for the Imperial Valley is trying to develop regional cooperation and really leveraging the resource to accomplish the strategic plan for the Imperial Valley. I just wanted to give you an idea of the direction of our economy here in the Imperial Valley, and keep in mind that these are projects that are just from the county. I don't have the evaluations of all the cities combined. We're trying to get that right now. I think it'll be even a better indication of the region. But what you see is the valuation of permits that were in our county from 2009 to 2014. Before the recession, before the crash of the housing industry, then $30 million would be something that would be common in the Imperial County. And as you can see, in 2012 to 2013, we had quite an increase in the projects here in the Imperial County, and that's the evaluation of the permits. We expect this year to surpass last year, or at least be equal with just a few projects. One of those being California Ethanol and Power at $640 million, and several others. It could actually be twice that if several of these projects are permitted before the end of this year, but they may carry over. And if that happens, then that amount will come in for the following year. So we're definitely on our way. I just wanted to let you know one of the industry clusters we've been marketing recently, different from the past, has been the aerospace industry. As you know, the Joint Strike Fighter is very important to the Imperial Valley. In addition to that, you have to look at aerospace as a whole. And one of our strategies has been is that with the aerospace industry in the region, in San Diego, Baja California, Imperial County, there's a real opportunity for us not only to attract the Joint Strike Fighter, but also a lot of the ancillary businesses. This is one of the projects, the Hopevale Airstrip, that is moving forward very quickly now. We actually have some letters of intent for tenants. We have some airlines that have letters of interest, and we are moving forward with developing this project. It's actually in 3 phases, of which the first phase is only about $2 to $5 million, and that would open up the airport for future developers. And as you can see, $50 to $100 million to $1 billion. A lot of the funding has already been dedicated for this project, so we are working on that. Clean energy, a biofuels industry. Yes,
Sorry,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Kelly, with regard to so that would be located in Hopeville.
It's actually in the county, but it's near Hopeville.
Oh, okay. And I'm not familiar with that specific location, but how is infrastructure coming in and out? Is there going to need to be a...
Eventually there will have to be upgrades. There is 2 entrances and exits to the facility, and there is power that is available there. There is water that can become available, but as it was an active facility in the past, and so we are working on that infrastructure.
Okay.
Tim, and just based on the investment funds, that would probably translate to an awful lot of jobs.
Correct. Thousands of jobs.
Yeah.
Probably tens of thousands of jobs. It's a very big project. Just to let you know, the demand for that, as you know, there was a study that was done, feasibility study for an airport site in Imperial County. They did not take into account Tecate, Tijuana, and Mexicali. And so a big driver for this is Mexico that wants to ship their products on this side of the border. It's currently going to Los Angeles, majority of it. About 3% of the air cargo, 3% of the air traffic in San Diego is air cargo, and they're maxed out. So there's a real opportunity for us to take advantage of air cargo here in the Imperial County.
Mr. Kelly, I want to mention the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, just reformed its aviation task force. And this is absolutely the kind of information that they're going to want to know about as
Right.
they look at a Southern California regional approach to all things aviation related. So this is perfect timing.
I'll make sure I touch base with Tomas tomorrow on this specific.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clean energy, a biofuels industry. I really do believe biofuels is going to be one of our biggest industries in the Imperial County. California Ethanol and Power is permitted a $640 million project, this one being about $120 million in equity. It's going to be a little bit larger than that. We have Oberon Fuels, a dimethyl ether project, which is the first project of its kind in North America. Was completed last year, and now we're trying to site their second location and possibly their third. So that's a real plus for us. It's just the beginning of what we believe will be a great industry in the biofuels. This is a picture of Oberon Fuels and the investment that they've made, but how that could transform our industry here in the Imperial County in not being so reliant on other types of fuel. California Ethanol Power, I mentioned, this project is permitted and nearly funded, so we're hoping to break ground third quarter of this year. These are just some of the energy projects that are throughout the region. And we've assisted every one of these companies, but this one is actually the new projects, not the old projects. But if you look at that, all the projects that are approved, ready to go, trying to raise funding. And so that's a real plus for us. And when people think that the renewable energy industry is over, we're really at the beginning of it. And if you add biofuels into that and some others, it's going to be a real plus.
You know, can I just ask
Sure.
a quick question? And just in terms of assisting, what has IVEDC done with these projects? What has their role been?
Well, first has been attracting a lot of these companies to the Imperial Valley. And so, you know, I think you can look at these projects and identify those that we actually attracted here through our marketing efforts, those that came here and then we assisted with the permitting, and those here that we actually assisted in the procurement. Mm-hmm. And I'll get to the procurement in just a second, but I'd say in every project we've been involved in one way or another. Some 100% and some just, you know, could be just 1%, but we're involved in all of them at one time or another. Good. And that's a lot dealing with, it could be the state, with the CEC, the PUC, it could be with the county, it could be with the IID on connection of energy, so it doesn't matter what, it's such as one of the projects here in El Centro, Soul Orchard, we assisted and worked with on a regular basis, and that project is now up and running both here and in Brawley.
Excellent.
We are working on some infrastructure projects for the public sector. There's 3 of them in particular, the 2 port of entries and regional water and sewage plant. This project in particular, I think you've heard about the funding for the Calexico West project, which my discussions with Mark Baza has eliminated them from the public-private partnership opportunity, but there's still that opportunity for the East Port of Entry. It's good for us that we have these types of projects to market for financing because the financing is there. And most projects, most companies looking for these types of projects limit themselves to a minimum of $100 million. So this is a perfect size project for the P3 project.
Can you say that again, Tim? What's almost like a status report
for this project? Okay, well, I think we could have a long discussion on that. But the East Port of Entry, or excuse me, the West project has been designed and partially funded.
Right.
And so it's ready to be built. It's just lacking some funding. Since the federal government has dedicated the funding, it eliminates it from a public-private partnership.
Okay.
This particular site has not been completely designed or funded, so therefore that opportunity is still open and it could be repaid through a toll.
What site is this?
This is the East Port of Entry, which is very important for our commercial traffic coming into the Imperial Valley.
So is that an expansion of the East Port? Or?
It's an expansion.
Okay.
Yeah, both on the commercial side and on the passenger side. Symbol Materials is a game changer for the Imperial Valley. It's $1.5 billion of investment. It could lead to a whole supply chain of industries pertaining to anybody that uses lithium, which is mainly batteries, but other uses, and zinc and manganese. And so we've been marketing to battery manufacturers for about 5 years now. We've had several site visits. Now with Symbol, it really puts us ahead of others. You probably heard some talk about certain car manufacturers here in the United States looking at the Imperial County. May be true, but to be honest with you, if a battery manufacturer is not looking at the Imperial County because of Symbol, then they're out of their minds, because we have potential of being top producer of lithium in the globe. Not only lithium, but the purest form of lithium that's ever been found. This detention center is near completion. They announced today, June 7th, they would be completed. And this is a large project for the Imperial Valley. It's $118 million. First phase is 91. They still have to raise the funding for the second, and then the third and fourth. So it's moving along pretty good. If you have been out to the Port of Entry lately, then you'll see that. And I think that there was a discussion at the Board of Supervisors today. You've seen the ICE facility discussing closure here. This was not known when this company took on the opportunity of the Imperial Valley. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, it's closing, it's a bad thing, because we're hoping to really increase the amount of employees here in the Imperial Valley. Now we're retaining them. But it does create an opportunity. We're not only retaining, but now we have an opportunity of increasing the size of this facility and maybe taking on not only ICE, but U.S. Marshals and others. A couple regional centers I think you're familiar with. This one in El Centro is nearing completion that I've marketed in China with the Alliance Regional Center. You're very familiar with this project. I know that our mayor attended an event in China in which they marketed this facility. It did very well. It's sold out its first phase, and actually all the investors are in. Now they're refinancing and moving to the next level, and I believe have permission to do that. So that's a real plus. It's only one of the few regional centers in the United States that's actually met all of its obligations and are moving forward with some additional sites. And of course in Heber, these buildings are up and running and looking for more investors, but I think it's four buildings that are currently completed. Mesquite Lake Regional Park is a project that we are trying to bring additional smaller companies to one area and looking at how we can improve the zoning. The zoning's already there, but the permitting and working with IID on a power purchase agreement that allow smaller companies to come in very quickly. And we've been working on this project for several years, and now we have a buyer that has both sites under control and is moving forward with that. So that's going to be a real plus for us. As you know, we market regionally. I do a lot of marketing across the globe, a lot in Mexico, and so it's been a real plus to have our support of our partners in San Diego, Baja California, and trying to bring attraction to this area. I think that's been a real plus. I'll be going to Merida and Caraco, I can't remember the name of it. Pretty soon we'll be marketing the region along with some others from California. And then these are our partners that we work with in the mega region. And I did mention the battery manufacturing. What makes us stand out? The amount of land that we have, the water, the rail access, the availability of land, local secure lithium, manganese, zinc, and regional access to electrical and industrial engineers centralized between major markets. And so that's a real plus for us. Simple Materials, as I mentioned, will work with the geothermal industry.
Tim, when you mentioned regional access to engineers, are you looking at Mexicali?
Definitely. And that's one of the things we really have to market. And when I was meeting with the governor's office the other day, and they were concerned about the engineers, and I said, where do you think Caltrans gets a lot of their engineers in Southern California? It's from Baja California. And so people don't think about what our assets are across the border, and it's something that we continually have to remind people. Business services, Sean Wilcox was here last year, gave a report. These are many of the companies that we have actually assisted in the procurement for their contractors. And so I think you recognize a lot of these companies. I will say that a lot of these companies are moving forward, up and running, and are spending money throughout the Imperial Valley. And so when we talk about the TOT tax, where that's generated is a lot of the TOT tax is generated by people that are working on these large projects. And we've got a very good relationship with many of the hotels because we're making the recommendations where they stay and assisting them. So I don't know if you know it, but it's very difficult to get a hotel in El Centro. And it's one of the complaints we've had, and that's a good problem to have. So it tells us we've got a great market here for the hotel industry. And this construction, by the way, is going to continue through 2020, just with the projects that we have, if not beyond. So we expect that to continue. I mentioned the outreach that we do, the business needs assessment, the procurement services, and the workforce development. We assist a lot with the workforce development. I'm the chair of the Business Services Committee, and Miguel Figueroa just attended the CalEd conference in Sacramento with us, so he was able to understand a lot what's going on in linking economic development and workforce development. So that's been a real plus. I did give you a sheet of people that are on our procurement list, and you'll see out of 96 people on our list, I think about 46 are El Centro companies. And so those are companies that are benefiting from this industry. There's about over $100 million of contracts that went through our office, and a lot of those went to El Centro companies. So when we talk about retail, a lot of what they're purchasing, hotels are staying in, generating TOT tax and sales taxes, are coming from these major projects that are benefiting El Centro. A lot of the companies have made El Centro their regional headquarters for projects such as 8-Minute Energy, Pattern when they were under construction, and several others. And we've seen an increase of a lot of companies, ancillary companies, that have come to El Centro because it's a county seat and their operations. So that's been a real plus for this city. So with that being said, I think that this business services program has been a real success. We did receive a statewide recognition as the top project in the state of California for that, and we're able to back it up with the dollars and now the companies that are benefiting from that industry. I just wanted to mention also, I gave a report last week to the governor's office and also to the state director of USDA, in which we discussed the projects that have been completed in Imperial County, but more importantly, the projects under development and pre-development. And under pre-development and development, there's a total of about about $13 billion of projects that are under development or pre-development that are going to be projects for the future. And most of those are, about half of those are permitted and ready to move forward. So, you know, this will trickle down into the economy of the Imperial Valley. We've already seen that with the permitting valuation, and we expect that to see in sales tax in the future and in jobs. And jobs is really what the key is. And you know, I think you've heard that there's a lot of jobs in construction and solar, and then it kind of drops off. But with the biofuels industry, with the geothermal industry, and some of the others, it's a huge job creator. Simple materials and others. So those are the ones that are really going to make a difference in the future. I'd be glad to take some questions at this time.
Start at this end. Mr. Jackson, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Silva.
Well, very impressive presentation, Tim. I think that we've been talking about a lot of these projects, and it's good to be at a point where now some of them are in the rearview mirror because they've developed, and that's a perfect example of what IBEDC has done and what continues to do. So very good job. Marcela, can you remind me of our history of contributions towards the IBEDC? And I know a lot of them came out of RDA funding, but where we are today?
Yes, when our redevelopment agency was in existence, we contributed $10,000. When the elimination occurred, we obviously reduced or eliminated contributions to IBEDC, SPDC, the bid when it was in existence, and also the Film Commission. Currently, we are contributing $1,000, and it's coming out from the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, it's very impressive in terms of, you know, the facts of, you know, 40% of these business services, you know, them coming out of El Centro. So that's a very impressive situation. I guess what can we do as a city to better support these efforts and encourage and you know, encourage these companies to come to El Centro? What can we do to support your efforts?
Well, I know one of the things that we've been doing recently has been sending out the notices for public projects, and that's been a real plus. We've heard from some of the cities that the companies responding has increased quite a bit, which increases the competition and drives down the cost, which is a real good thing. But it creates more opportunity locally. I think that's one thing, is continue to send those notices to us, which we get out, and actually the Imperial Valley Press has started noticing those, putting those in the newspaper. Okay. So that's been a real plus.
Now, I apologize for my novice on this, but in terms of other cities, how much are they contributing towards your organization, and what cities are contributing?
Currently, City of Brawley at $5,000, and we're in discussions of increasing that because they were contributing $60,000 to their enterprise zone, which no longer exists. So they're looking at moving those dollars over to IBDC for some additional activities. City of Hopeville currently is at $1,000. We're under negotiations with them. As you know, they're going to see a real benefit of the detention center when it opens up, and so we are looking at a program that would benefit that city. City of Hopeville currently, Imperial is currently at 1,000, and those are in City of El Centro at 1,000. And we don't receive any funding at this time from Calexico or Westmoreland or Brawley. We also receive funding from the Heber Public Utility District, and we are in discussions with Salton City Community District and Sealy at this time.
Have you requested any funding from El Centro?
For this year?
Yes, sir.
No, the request was that I come to this meeting, and we hope to see an increase in the public sector involvement of IBDC. I think you can see that there's a benefit that the city is receiving. We'd like to expand our marketing efforts, and it's only done by raising additional capital. One of the things we are doing this year, we are participating in International Council of Shopping Centers through Team California. It's something as a member of IBDC that you can participate, And we can talk to you about that later, but it's going to be a very low-cost way to be able to participate in that event.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Ms. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, Mr. Kelly. In regard to the East Port of Entry, you made reference to, I'm sorry, not the East Port of Entry, that Holtville site. Would you put that back on the screen if you
Is that the
can,
airport?
please? Yes, the airport.
Sure.
Is this not the same, if I can call his name before he fell from grace, Congressman Bob Filner was looking at as a cargo center when he was talking about putting in a cargo?
Well, there's actually 3 sites that were chosen. This was number 3.
Okay,
The number 1 site, and this is the thing when you hire consultants who are not from the Imperial Valley, when they identified the 3 sites, they had them almost in reverse order of what the locals would have told them.
Okay.
The number 1 site was in the Utah Desert, the most culturally and environmentally sensitive area in Imperial Valley. Number 2 site was actually just north of the East Port of Entry and probably the most valuable agriculture land in the Imperial Valley, and this was number 3. This site is owned by the Imperial County and is
Right.
under contract right now for development.
okay. And then on the second area you discussed was the East Port of Entry, talking about the number of, the expansion. And the expansion, of course, we already know that they have a lot of trucks going through there. And this was part of the whole purpose, was to try, when we did the Brawley bypass.
Correct.
The whole purpose was to open up that pathway so that we could move goods and services throughout hopefully throughout California. Much of it was going to the east of us, to Arizona and beyond. Now, where do you anticipate that this will be coming through California?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
definitely, and it's not going to be changing the route onto SR7. What's going to do is allow the trucks to get through quicker.
Okay.
And if they can't get through quicker here, then we can attract more trucks from Tecate and even other areas in Mexico.
All right.
But one of the benefits of this particular site is the federal government owns the land
Yes,
around it.
Yes.
So they can move forward very quickly. They don't have to acquire any land, and that's a real plus.
Okay. And then, let's talk about the detention center that's being proposed or near completion. You gave us, did you give us any indication as to the number of employees? You were talking about losing employees, whether we're going to lose them, retain them, or just add to. Could you give us a number that might be?
Yeah, this site is designed for about 760 inmates. It's larger than the facility here in El Centro, but it's actually going to require less employees than the facility here in El Centro. Phase 2 has already been designed, well, I shouldn't say designed because it's a design build, has already been approved by the county to increase another 250 beds, and then they're looking at an additional phase for possibly another 1,000 beds. So in the end, it would be an increase, but currently there's not going to be a large enough facility to accommodate all the employees that could potentially lose their job at the ICE facility here in El Centro.
All right, and let me make sure I've got the math correct. Currently, it's available for 760 inmates.
Yeah, about 760.
And then design build for phase 2 is an additional 250
That's correct. And it's permitted for 1,000.
for 1,000, okay. And this will then, I don't think I want to ask that question. I was going to ask, is this going to be a replacement? But I don't want to ask that question, Madam Mayor. What I'm looking at is the one that we currently have over on Imperial, I call it Imperial Avenue, was a Western region, housing for the Western region. So I'm going to assume that this will do likewise.
If it's used for ICE, and maybe that's why ICE determines as Western region, but the way that U.S. Marshals looks at it is Southern California region, which is San Diego and Imperial County. And the mandate is that inmates are placed in the area in which they are arrested, which there's probably demand for about 5,000 beds in San Diego and Imperial County. That's what they're short right now. So this is just going to make up a small portion
It's
of
just
that.
for Imperial County, so it's not considered the region, all right.
San Diego and Imperial County is one region. I think with ICE, it could be Western region,
Yeah,
which is a
it
much
was-
larger
It's a
region.
much larger.
Because there's only 6 ICE facilities in the United
And
States.
that's correct, and that's what I was thinking. If this is a region, then it would be larger, the potential for additional employees would be greater, the opportunities for jobs would be enhanced,
Correct,
but we will wait to see it after this is built out.
yes.
Okay.
And it's a spec building. There's no contracts in place.
I'm sorry.
There's no contracts in place for which inmates are going to house. So it's still a spec building.
Okay,
So we hope that somebody will utilize it, and I think they will.
All right, thank you. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Jackson, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Kelly. You know, I've always been very impressed with your organization, and I know that you guys do very good work, and a lot of local companies certainly benefit from it. My question to you is that as you see an increase of these companies coming into Imperial County and or El Centro, what is it that you're seeing the most requested service from IBEDC? Is it, because I don't know if it's the attraction part anymore, because I think that, you know, people starting to know we are on the map, but once they get here, what is it that you're spending most of your time, your staff time on? Is it the procurement part? Is it permitting? What is it that you guys are spending a lot of time on?
Well, the first is the permitting. And keep in mind, a lot of these companies are international or coming from other places in the United States. So California is a challenge. And, you know, what we've been marketing is the proof that we can get projects done here. So if they're the best company, they should have no problem getting a project done here because it's been done in the past. But definitely walking through companies through the procurement process, I will tell you that from the county standpoint and even the IID, that time it's always been good. Now it's probably the best in California. And so the projects are very welcomed by the community. That's been a big change. And then getting these projects, the permitting time is taking a lot less. And some of them are new technologies. So the first project, like Oberon as an example, Air Quality Control District had some issues with it, and now their second project should go pretty quick. And by the way, one of the reasons Oberon Fuels came here was because we were marketing that this is a county that could get projects done, and then they could take advantage of the rest of the California market. And the second thing is that procurement. You know, we were seeing a lot of companies that were coming to Imperial Valley, and the path of least resistance is hire a company you've already worked with. Could be from, you know, from Arizona, it could be from Northern California, and they come down here. They do stay in hotels, and that's not a bad thing, but luckily we've been able to contract with a lot of local companies. So that's been a plus for our economy, a plus for the employees here. And the next thing today, the biggest issue is financing. And so for the small businesses, it's been access to capital. At a time when companies were downsizing because of the recession, all of a sudden we're bringing them contracts and they needed to expand very quickly. We worked with the local banks to do that. And now it's financing for the large projects and gap financing for, when we say a small project to be under $50 million, it's them trying to raise that capital. And so we've been identifying some funding to help with the gap financing. So I think in that order was our experience what the biggest challenges were. Financing definitely the biggest issue today.
Okay. And my second question would be, maybe Letitia could help us with. Letitia, where are we as far as funding possibilities? I know obviously we're all out of general fund now, and I think we've recently helped out the SCORE and strike fighters, so I know that there's a depletion of funds, but where are we, and what could we possibly do to increase with IBEDC? I don't know if you're prepared to answer that question, but if you are, if you can help us out with that.
Well, I'll be presenting the budget, and it's a balanced budget, so at this time, that's not included in it. However, I can take a look to see if it's possible. Maybe we can do something this year, but of course, I need some type of direction.
What
as to amount.
you're talking about, because we're building the budget for next year, you're talking about consideration of a funding request for the 2014-2015 cycle.
For next year, then?
Yes.
Yeah, because isn't that's what we're here for, right? Is that what?
Well, it's my understanding, and this is typically what happens, is we get the IBEDC presentation at the start of as we're building our budget for the coming year. So I think that that's all part and parcel of what the discussion later in this meeting will be, is do we have funding, or are we anticipating funding at any level for the groups that Ms. Piedra mentioned earlier, whether that be IBEDC or Small Business Administration or Film Commission, groups that we have in the past supported, but due to other priorities and funding issues we've had, the funding stream has dried up and gone away. But we'll leave it to Ms. Salcido and this council to work collaboratively to determine if there's a prioritization of those funds for next year. Is that right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I had a couple of questions,
Sure.
Mr. Kelly. On the slide presentation, the regional centers, what does FDI stand for?
Foreign direct investment.
Foreign direct investment. Okay.
You know, and I think you bring up a good question. You know, there's a lot of people that go to foreign countries try to raise capital for projects. The regional center concept has been very good for the Imperial County. There's actually 6 companies that have regional centers that can operate in the Imperial County that we're working with. 3 are under construction, and so that's been a real plus. But what that's added to is, as these people have made investments in these projects from foreign countries, they have introduced us to additional financiers, large financiers of projects. And so now we're moving from a stage from EB5 at $500,000 minimum to companies that are looking at hundreds of millions to billions of dollars of investment in our county. And so that's been a real plus, and that's been our strategy is, you know, really the carrot is the EB5 program.
Right. And YK America, who's been instrumental in economic development in our area, is also going to be participating as a sponsor of the SCAG Annual General Assembly. So that was pretty cool that they want to continue to support regional efforts. Chambers of Commerce. When I think about the direct benefits for the work that IBEDC does so well and is so successful at doing, businesses throughout, existing businesses benefit if they're able to become a piece of the chain here, supply chain. We benefit through sales tax, TOT. I would think that chambers of commerce, their membership benefits. So are there chambers of commerce that donate money to IBEDC?
No, they don't. And they used to, but they do not at this time.
All right. Well, I think that was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we wish you much continued success.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Yeah.
Okay, next up is a report on our AT&T project.
Wear softer shoes next time. Good evening, I'm Christine Moore, Director of External Affairs for AT&T, and I'd like to introduce Daryl Doherty with PlanCom, who's our consultant on our project at 763 State Street. I wanted to be here tonight to give you a quick update on the progress on this site. First of all, I want to continue to thank the city for their partnership on this project. We've been working very closely, and things have been moving very quickly with city staff, Norma and Adriana, and so we appreciate their cooperation on this project with us. Very quickly, since our last report, I'm sorry, let me put my glasses on. Since our last report, AT&T released an RFP for a lighting proposal. You might recall we talked about a potential lighting project along State Street and some of the connector streets. So we prepared an RFP and we identified 6 local firms here in Imperial Valley that we felt were qualified to respond to the RFP. We reached out to those 6 firms and we received 1 response. We did have a little bit of a waiting period, hoping to hear from more, and then we actually made a second round of outreach for an RFP, and we did receive a second response. So ultimately, we did get 2 firms responding. Of those 2, we did select 1, and we executed a contract with Proterra. Proterra then took the request that we had and last week returned with a preliminary lighting plan and an engineer's estimate, so that is complete. We now are at the point where we'll be reviewing, and we've already been in discussions with city staff this week. We have a call that will be scheduled at the end of the week to fine-tune the lighting details and to get an idea of exactly what the scope of that project will look like. We're very sensitive to the fact that although we are initiating the lighting project, that the city ultimately will be responsible for maintaining that particular lighting. So we're talking about the type of lighting, what kind of maintenance that type of lighting will require down the road, things like that. So those are all issues that we're now engaging in discussions with city staff. We also completed our engineering assessment on the proposed modifications to the existing tower, and I'm very glad to say that we received a report last week that that has passed. So the good news is that what we have proposed for that site is feasible, it's doable, and we are very excited to be moving forward with that as well. So that is my update for today, and myself or Daryl are here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start at this end first, Ms. Sanders.
No questions at this time, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you.
I guess the only question, you actually bring up a good point because the city will be maintaining the lighting. So is Mr. Hagan part of those discussions as well, or is it
Daryl, I'm sorry, can you tell me
Mr. Terry?
with Proterra? You're referring to Proterra?
No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Internal staff.
Yeah, who's involved in the discussions as far as the maintenance of the lighting?
Abraham is the, I think you could say he's the lead on the lighting project, but we're
Okay.
also in discussions with Adriana. And then, of course, Norma is overseeing the
Okay.
discussions as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Mr. Silva?
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
It kind of puzzled me when you said that you had at least 6 interested parties in submitting bids, but only one, and then you kind of had to force the second one. Was there something that people did not find appealing to
You
to
know,
bid
I
on?
couldn't speak to the reasons they didn't respond. We identified 6 that we felt had the capacity to be able to do a project like this. And of those 6, we did perform the outreach. We got 1 response. A second round of outreach produced a second response and a tentative commitment to respond from a 3rd group, and ultimately they chose not to. So we did get 2 out of the 6, and then we selected Proterra.
And where are they? I'm not familiar with that firm, Proterra.
Proterra
No.
is a local group. And
Local
sorry.
El Centro?
Yes.
Oh.
And it was important to us that we try to keep as much
Yeah,
of this as
thank
local
you
as
for that.
possible.
Mr. Jackson?
Just just a comment that I'm very excited to see this thing finally get going.
Yes.
Look
are we.
forward to the lighting project and lighting up State Street, and our city staff is working on the other part of that for Main Street that we received a grant for. So I really think this is a game changer for our downtown. Lighting has always been a big issue in the downtown area, and very appreciative of AT&T's progress on this up to this point.
And we thank you for your support on this. Mayor, council, and city staff have been absolutely integral to moving this forward. We're excited that the timing of the grant that the city has received on the adjacent street for their lighting project really, I think, presents some great buying power opportunities for the city, and an opportunity to really, join these projects together and get something beautiful for the downtown core.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, I have some follow-ups as well.
What was the project cost?
Well, it's ongoing. It's an ongoing negotiation. The preliminary lighting proposal that has been presented by Proterra is coming in at about $500,000.
Okay.
But that is subject to a lot of different variables on that. Again, looking at an investment in a particular style of light might mean a higher cost for the city down the road. Those are all discussions we've been having this week and that we will continue to have going forward.
And can you just briefly explain what streets those include? I mean, I know we talked about all the way to 4th Street, but is there additional streets involved as well?
So when we presented the idea of the initial lighting proposal, it was State Street from 5th to 8th. And in discussions with city staff and recognizing some emerging issues that had come up, the city's successful grant application for the federal lighting project, there was some back and forth that ended up that we would do a lighting assessment that went from 4th to 8th, as well as the connector streets to Main. So the lighting proposal that we received from Proterra covers that scope.
And that scope, that total project cost for that is coming in at $500,000.
Yes.
When you say assessment, now is AT&T agreeing to consider that, or they're just determining what the cost would be, or what is AT&T maybe committing to in terms
Well,
of this
I think
project?
it's preliminary to say what we're committing to. That's part of the discussions we'll be having. It is coming in at twice as much as we originally had forecasted. So, there is a significant cost increase over what we anticipated for this project. So I think, these discussions that are coming up in the next few weeks are very important to this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
When I hear the term assessment, it leads me to think that sometimes we speak about assessments in terms of property owners or businesses are going to have to pay into either the preliminary cost, upfront costs, or continuing costs. Is that part of this?
No, and thank you for clarifying that. When we say an assessment, we mean defining the scope of the project, figuring out the placement of the particular light standards, what type of light standards will be, and ultimately the cost, the initial upfront cost of the project. But also a part of that discussion is the city's obligation going forward. There are particular types of lights that are more attractive than others to vandalism, things like that. There are lights where the parts are less easily available that cost more down the road to replace as those naturally wear out. So we're just trying to now figure out what type of lighting, the placement of those. The project that we asked Proterra to consider was the full scope, which was 4th to 8th in the connector streets.
Okay, so
No
was kind of
assessment for the
yeah,
businesses,
this was
though.
kind of a
Right. Thank you
piggyback
for
question
clarifying.
or clarifying question for Mr.
Right.
Cardenas. So it's the upfront cost, the build-out cost
Yes.
would be borne by AT&T, ongoing maintenance for the city of El Centro.
Yes,
To be
and I wanna-
determined.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And that's the discussions we're having, but that is the brief, short answer on that.
With regard to the existing tower,
Mhm.
can we see at a future meeting then what those modifications are going to be looking like?
Mhm. And we have presented a simulation to the city.
Yeah.
It's additional antenna on the existing antenna.
Right.
And then there will also be some screening that we've talked about adding in. We had a discussion today about some louvered screening for the rooftop equipment. And then, of course, all the existing conditions that were part of the previous project, the hardscape, the paint, things like that, the paving, those things will still be included.
Okay, so I think we just like an update on,
Sure.
preview of coming attractions, what that's all going to look
Absolutely.
like, the final build-out on the tower. And then with regard to the report, the structural soundness, has that been provided to city staff for review?
We just received that last week, and Daryl, are we turning that in as part of the larger package? I'm sorry, I'm going to defer to him on the timing of this. He's handling the submittal of the report.
Because I think one of the questions, Ms. Moore, that you and I had discussed is because of the timing and the earthquake, everything else that kind of interceded between when that tower was last looked at, and now we wanted to make sure that the supplemental study was pretty done.
Yes, we actually did do that. We did get that done. And we're actually converting that into the actual calcs for the retrofit and upgrade to bring it up to current building standards.
Okay, and that will be provided to city staff
Absolutely,
as
as
part of
our building
okay.
permit.
And then I don't know if this is a question for maybe Norma, Ms. Villacano, or the city manager, but the process now, because this is essentially been taken out of this realm and now is being processed through a different route.
Yes, good evening. The process for this conditional use permit would be going through the administrative committee. Once we get all the information, all the design, we will take this to the committee to review and set up the conditional use permit with the conditions of approval.
And do we have a time frame? Obviously, this is something that's been kicking around for a really
It's like the elephant in the room.
time. And now that it looks like pieces are kind of falling into place, it'd be
Yes.
nice to just get this done.
Right, we have made significant progress on this project. Our goal is to be able to procure a building permit by the end of June. I'm sorry. Submit the building permit, I'm so sorry. Thank you. To submit the building permit by the end of June to have a complete package put together. And of course, we recognize, that you're the eyes and the ears of the community, and we fully commit to continuing to keep you apprised of the progress on the project.
Okay, excellent.
I
Anything
would,
else?
again, it's so important to see you here and giving us updates. I would just encourage to continue to
Yes.
over-communicate with us and just provide us updates. But it's just really, really important that you're here tonight.
Absolutely, thank you for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move forward with the consent agenda items 4 through 10. I wanted to hold number 8 for a quick question. Okay, 4 through 7, 9, and 10.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jackson, second by Silva. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Unanimously carried. With regard to agenda item number 8, Mr. Duran, Imperial County Aerial Imaging Project. The City of El Centro's contribution for that, how does that align with contributions made by the other cities and County of Imperial? Let's see.
I think we believe, based on the information we received, that aligns well. We looked, the other city managers also met on this last week. It was one of our topics of discussion. We looked at square mileage, we looked at populations, we tried to come up with some other methodologies, and what we arrived at was the $6,000 fair participation in the project.
Well, I find that kind of an interesting statement, because if I think about the county and the overall county square mileage that's going to be photographed, and our tiny little city, it seems to be disproportionate, and that's why I asked the
Well,
question. $6,000, because if I look at page 2 of the agenda report, Skag's putting up $100,000. Let's see, county 10,000. County planning is to be determined. Public health 2,000.
Well, we took very much in looking at, for example, the $1,000 from Hopeville, looking at the 4,000 square miles of the county,
Yep.
our 10 square miles.
Yeah.
So when we ran it with that kind of proportion, the dollar value was so small. So the question was, do we want to participate more in some kind of proportion to the others? So it was a subjective process we arrived at, and that's where the $6,000 come from. When we try to do the math, well, 98% of it's going to be county, because they have so many square miles. So that's the process. It was really looking at where do we fit among the others participating with our small square miles, and we came out with something that seemed reasonable to support the project.
So what happens if the shortfall is not, that gap is not closed? There's a shortfall, according to the agenda report, of almost $39,000,
Well,
$38,500.
In our discussions with Mark Braza on this, who's the director for ICT, the Imperial County Transportation Commission, they may not fly some of the federal areas that are not needed. They'll fly the areas that they need. They'll cut back on the project and fly the areas that are necessary for what everyone really works in. Because there's a lot of ground that we'll never touch. So they have a plan for adjusting the project.
Okay, so there is a plan B if that shortfall is not
That's what Mr.
closed.
Braza indicated.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve item 8.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Silva, second by Sanders, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carried unanimously. Let's move on then to agenda item number 11. This is our public hearing for purposes of soliciting input for our 2014-2019 draft consolidated plan prepared for funds under the CDBG entitlement program. Ms. Piedra.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor. You should have received an updated version of the draft consolidated plan. And basically, the preparation of this plan is a requirement by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Anytime you have an entitlement or a jurisdiction that receives funding directly from the Department of Housing, you're required to produce what is known as the consolidated plan. And basically, what's before you is a 5-year plan for the city of El Centro. This represents the 3rd year of consolidated plan that we prepare. We actually have been an entitlement city since 2004, so it's been 10 years. I do have a brief presentation to identify what the needs are in the community, what the goals are, and obviously a history as to the funding. And you will see that we have obviously seen a significant reduction in that allocation since 2004. Yeah. This plan that you have before you is actually a new format that the Department of Housing has introduced, and it's a pretty extensive format. You will note that there is missing information. We're waiting for, obviously, the results of the point in time survey that was conducted recently to try to identify what our homeless needs are, and that information is expected to be provided by April 25th. Our plan is due to HUD by May 15th, so we do have enough time, and obviously we are opening up a public comment period, which is required. Again, very extensive process in terms of citizen participation, and also consultation with different county agencies, nonprofits, and obviously all of that information, data gathering is reflected in this 5-year consolidated plan. So in this brief presentation that I have, basically what you have with the CDBG program is you have to be looking at what 3 national objectives you're satisfying with this program. Basically, the first one being you need to benefit members of the targeted income group, which in essence are lower income populations. You're looking at elimination of slum and blight, And also, if there's a particular community development urgency that we have in our community, you can actually set aside funds under CDBG to address those. In terms of our eligible census tracts, you will see in the highlighted areas are basically those block group census tracts that are within what is characterized as an income targeted group area. So this is the area where we obviously focus our efforts in terms of providing CDBG funding and funding projects and programs.
That's a little hard to read, Ms. Bueter. Can you just help me point out?
Give us the
Oops, I'm sorry,
boundaries.
on the map.
Give us the street boundaries.
Can you give us like Imperial Avenue or 8th Street or 4th Street or?
Yes, basically this is Dogwood here.
Dogwood's there,
This is
okay.
8th Street, and then up here we have El Dorado, basically, that's where the boundaries end, and then this is La Boucherie. So it's pretty
Okay.
much the inner city census tracts.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And then in this slide, basically we have and this is only direct funding that we're getting from HUD. It does not include the program income that we generate through the state. But what I wanted to reflect in this slide is basically the funding that we have received and how it has fluctuated and obviously been reduced over a time period. Again, we became an entitlement city in 2004, and so it's been 10 years. And you can see that the first year we got $808,000. There was a point in time when we basically lost 50% of the funding. It has increased, but very, very slightly. But the interesting thing is over the 10-year period, we have received $7 million in just the CDBG program through HUD. When you look at the 10 years and how we have actually allocated that $7 million, we look that we have basically spent 25% of those funds doing affordable housing activities. We have spent 16% under public services, which basically funds our homeless shelters, provides funding for to provide senior meals, and obviously those requests you get on an annual basis, and we allocate it on an annual basis. What's interesting is with the public services, we have to work with the 15% cap, where we cannot spend more than 15% of our annual allocation in public services. So overall, we've spent 16%. In terms of non-housing community development, 46% of our money has been spent in that area. And basically what areas are part of that? Any improvements that we do to public facilities, to parks, our sidewalk program, we have spent very, very heavily our CDBG funds in improving sidewalks throughout those areas where you saw it in the census tracts to improve our sidewalks. And we've also done code enforcement, economic development activities. The good news is we have been very good about leveraging funding and is reflected in the plan in the area of affordable housing and basically under our non-housing community development. For example, under affordable housing with home funds, which is money that we get directly from the state, again, looking at the 10-year period, we have received $10 million in terms of providing housing rehabilitation services and also doing new construction such as Las Brisas project, Countryside, senior villas. So very good leverage in terms of supplementing what we get from CDBG. The interesting thing with CDBG, though, is we cannot use CDBG funds to construct affordable housing. We can't do that. We can use it for offsites, but we can't do new construction. We can only do housing rehabilitation. And so that's why staff tries to look for other funding sources to do affordable housing. Obviously, a major hit that we have seen in terms of affordable housing has been the loss of redevelopment. Redevelopment was the second funding source basically in our state for affordable housing. So that's a big challenge we have going forward in terms of affordable housing. For program administration, we are spending 13%. Again, in this area, we can only budget up to 20% for program administration, which basically covers salaries to implement and do all of the activities necessary for the CDBG. What are our priority needs? And basically, if you look at the information and the data that we have to gather as part of the development of this consolidated plan, our priorities basically remain the same and in the areas that we have since 2004 been targeting. And those priority needs are in the area of affordable housing. in the homeless area, special needs population, which basically includes seniors, veterans, special groups within our population that might have a particular special need. Fair housing, lead-based paint hazards in the area of public facilities and park improvements, crime prevention, infrastructure, providing public infrastructure, public services, and economic development. In terms of housing goals, what are our objectives under housing goals? Obviously, the first one being is to preserve our existing housing stock. Again, based on data that we have, approximately 50% of our housing stock is in some kind of need of repairs. We are budgeting for this 2014 program here to update our housing condition survey, which was last done in 2008. And we're jointly working with our community development department to do an updated housing condition survey. And that also is part of our housing element strategy, that we are going to update that housing condition survey. Our objective number 2 is to expand the supply of affordable housing, including housing that provides permanent supportive housing to special needs population. Again, we have a need to provide housing to individuals that have some type of mental challenge. And so we have the need to provide that also to individuals that are coming out of the foster system. So there is a tremendous need to provide housing in just about every aspect that you see in our community. Objective number 3 is to increase the affordable homeownership opportunities. This is an area too where we supplement and we try to find other funding sources that are not connected to CDBG to provide a homeownership program to our residents here in El Centro. And objective number 4 is to continue our code enforcement. We have been funding the code enforcement program for the past 2 years from CDBG, so we hope to continue with those efforts as well. In terms of our homeless goals, we obviously want to improve our public services for the homeless population and support the efforts of the continuum of care system. Basically, the Imperial County version of the continuum of care system is the Imperial Valley Regional Task Force on Homelessness. The City of El Centro is a member of that, and we participate in that. And so, obviously, continuing the efforts with that task force as well. Objective number 6, increase our accessibility to support agencies to reduce chronic homelessness. Again, this is where the support to Catholic Charities, Women Haven come in. Under the special needs population, objective number 7 is to assist special needs persons in reducing housing costs and also any kind of rehabilitation need they may need with their housing. Fair housing, obviously that's a required, and we've been very successful, obviously in coordination with Inland, to promote fair housing in our community. Lead-based paint, also working with Imperial County Public Health Department in getting statistics in identifying lead-based. We also provide funding through CDBG to assist with the abatement of lead-based. So that's also part of our goal. Under public facilities and park improvements, again, tremendous improvements has been made to many of our parks. Obviously, right now we have the construction of the indoor sports complex. 1.6 million of that funding out of the $6 million project has come out from CDBG funds for that project. And we also initially did put CDBG funds for the splash pad, and so we were able to initiate, obviously, that project with CDBG funds. Crime prevention, we have funded crime prevention programs before. That's obviously also one of our goals, is to fund these activities as well. Under the infrastructure, again, just improve infrastructure in our neighborhoods. Again, over $1 million has been spent in sidewalk improvements throughout the CDBG targeted areas. An area we're focusing in right now, in the absence of, having lost Colonia funding directly from the state, now we're obviously putting effort in trying to improve the El Dorado Colonia area here in the city. Public services, again, trying to address the public service needs of our population. And then under economic development, we have funded in the past, in conjunction with the Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Program, some tax preparation programs in order to encourage, obviously, entrepreneurship. We've also have set aside funds to do a micro enterprise program through these funding. And that's, of course, our economic development goal. So that's my presentation. If there's any particular questions that you may have regarding the consolidated plan, again, there's missing information. It's a work in progress. We rely obviously on other agencies to provide us with the information. The main aspect right now is basically getting the results of that point-in-time survey for the homeless count.
And this is due to the state on the May 15th?
May 15th, that's correct.
Questions?
I think we've seen these before, Madam Mayor, and the staff has always done a fine job in making sure that the funds are allocated appropriately throughout the community. I think that we're all very pleased to see what we were able to accomplish over in the Colonia just this year. We were worried about streets, and she was able to find a way to get that accomplished. So thank you. That's the El Dorado corridor. Let me rephrase the Colonia, the El Dorado corridor.
Yeah. And again, just please forgive my novice in this too, but, I was reading the executive summary, and again, I really appreciate executive summaries. They're always very helpful, but just in terms of citizen participation, and the consolidated plan is very extensive in terms of what we're doing to outreach and encourage. I guess my question is, are we getting feedback from those folks? I mean, I know that the website can probably be helpful, the Valley Regional Task Force as well, but in your opinion, are those folks showing up to the meetings? Are they giving their input? Is there anything else that we should be considering in the next 5 years?
Basically, the entities and the groups that have an interest and are a voice to many of these groups that we are benefiting or should be targeting are participating. As you probably have seen, many of the nonprofits come before you. When we open up the public solicitation process, they come before you and they give you input. We also have direct contact with many of these agencies, and just talking about what kind of waiting list do you have. For example, the Imperial Valley Housing Authority, they have over 5,000 people that are waiting for public housing. That's just for affordable housing. Under their Section 8, they have almost 3,000 people, and the majority of them want to be here in El Centro. So in many cases, we have to do the direct contact, but we also see that they are providing comments to us, because this is a major effort for our community. And what we have been seeing lately is there's many funding that's being offered at the federal level to address homelessness. Right. And so it's very important that we have an understanding of what the needs are as far as that group is concerned. The major issue is that the affordable housing. And again, it's in all aspects of the community, in the lower income. Mm-hmm. We see that based on the numbers that you have here in this plan, that a majority of the population is paying more than 30% of their income for housing. Right. And so that's a big issue. And again, just on waiting lists that you see, to give you an example for Las Brisas, the recent apartment complex that was completed, 72 units, but they had 800, close to 800 applications of families that wanted to move into that complex.
Yeah. I would just, the only minor suggestion or encouragement is, I know we did a big presentation at our last city council on the use of technology, and I know our city website's on there, and I really appreciate that, but next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of information probably being moved, different ways. So whether it's, on our city Facebook page or something to that effect, I think it would be very helpful, and the state would probably be impressed if we're leveraging technology to get our communications out. Just a minor suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. Silva?
No questions, just other than a very good job again. I think it's the balance of projects that we see come through, and the quality of the projects that we see come through, that, if you can summarize all of those projects and categories is an improvement in quality of life, and that's really what we're doing as we see all the improvements. So my thanks to you, Marcela, and all your staff for a wonderful job that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. Really no questions, but job well done, and I know it's always difficult to really figure out where we're going to allocate funds, and certainly one of the most difficult times as a council member I've had is when all the nonprofits come, and It's a very difficult, because they're all worthy causes and they all do great work in our community, but unfortunately, we don't have a limitless fund that we can just fund everybody. So it is difficult, but you do a good job at getting the best out of what we've got. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Piedra, I think, we look at this on a year-over-year basis, but when we finally bring it all together and see, for example, $7.1 million over the last 10 years, and we think back to the number of projects that we've successfully implemented or quality of life issues that we've addressed, this is, I think, just really brings it home what a phenomenal impact you and your staff have had on this community. This is a public hearing, so at this time, we'll open the public hearing and ask, are there any comments with regard to the draft consolidated plan? Seeing no comments, we'll close the public hearing. We'd ask for approval of resolution number 14-28, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro approving the city's Community Development Block Grant 5-year consolidated plan 2014 through 2019 for funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Entitlement Grantee Program.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Cardenas, second by Sanders. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Piedra. We'll move on then to item number 12.
Yes, and speaking of CDBG funds, very good project. We're hoping to get started soon. And basically, it is the results of our bid process that we did for the Carlos Aguilar Improvement Project. We sent it out to bid, and we actually had a bid opening on April the 3rd. We had 3 bids, and the lowest bid coming from Ace Electric Incorporated. They're a company from San Diego that has extensive experience in the installation and doing the improvements that we are requiring at Carlos Aguilar Park. The bid obviously came in within budget, and so we are recommending that you consider approving the award of this contract so that we may initiate the Carlos Aguilar Improvement Project. Any questions?
Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, one question. The Douglas Hoops, Tom Watson, is that a local company? Tom Watson looks familiar, but I've never seen the Douglas Hoops before.
Yes, actually, Mr. Watson partnered with this company. It's basically an out-of-town company, and he partnered with this company to submit the bid.
So my question would be is that was he eligible for local preference dollars or local preference?
In this particular case, we can't use the local preference because we're using CDBG dollars,
Gotcha.
which is federal funds, so we can't allow that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Questions? Prior to awarding any contract, I always want to make sure that staff has done reference checks with regard to the contracting services to make sure that they've successfully completed the projects that they say that they've done of a similar nature. Has that been done yet?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, and we do have a representative from the company here that joined us this evening. And ACE installed similar lighting at Sunbeam Lake, so they have worked with the county. We checked with the county, and they were very, very happy with the work that they performed.
Okay.
And they have done similar projects in other areas.
Okay. I think that just on a going forward basis, and this probably applies to all agenda reports, that to the extent the reference checks or due diligence, I guess we should assume that the due diligence has been completed, but I think an affirmative statement within the agenda item saying that the due diligence has been completed. So for example, to the extent we have to validate contractor licensing requirements, bonding, insurance, and those sorts of things. Just a simple line, due diligence has been completed and
Sure.
is satisfactory for going forward would be awesome. Okay.
Sure.
With that, we would look for approval of resolution number 14-29, resolution of City Council of the City of El Centro awarding the bid and authorizing the execution of a contract for the Carlos Aguilar Park Improvement Project.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Sanders, second by Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously carries.
Thank
So
you.
the principal from the firm is here. Did you want to say a couple words?
No, I'm good. You guys are very, I need to come up. You guys are very refreshing. You're positive and you're upbeat and you're thinking about the community. It's nice to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'd move on to agenda item number 13. City Council will recall that some time ago, we did appoint a hospital affiliation task force of 2 members. At this time, it would be my recommendation that we continue forward with a single member of the task force and not look to replace the other member, which was Mr. Jackson. So I would just ask the council's concurrence with that action. Comments?
Concur.
I concur.
Is that a motion that is required or just a concurrence?
A motion? Move mayor's recommendation.
Could I comment?
Sure.
Of course.
Do we have a second? Did we get a second, Madam? You're going to second for discussion. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess my question would be is, I mean, do we need an alternate on the task force at all, or do you feel that we would need an alternate, or?
Well, this is where I thought things would start to get a little funny, because we have 2 members of the council that currently sit on the hospital board, one as a voting member, one as an ex officio, myself. I know that Mr. Duran has been actively engaged in the task force meetings, so even if I was not able to attend, I know that we have backup in terms of staff representation.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, even though I had made the motion, it appears that maybe Mr. Cardenas might be interested in being an alternate in order to learn more about the hospital and what's going on in the workings of the facility.
I do acknowledge, again, that I am a novice at this, but I do want to extend my services in case they needed additional support. I am available, but I'll defer to the council on that.
I appreciate, Alex, your extending your willing to volunteer. I don't know, I think this task force is so well advanced in what they're doing, and I think to be able to catch up on all the activities and the complexity of the negotiations that are taking place, I would feel comfortable with the mayor and the city manager acting on behalf of the city.
Okay. And that's fine. I just wanted to extend my interest in it and wanted to make sure that I made that public.
Well, we will be having the appointment of the members to the Hospital Board of Trustees coming up in July, so that's an opportunity. Good preview of coming attractions. Appreciate your interest there. I do believe we have a motion by Sanders, a second by Silva. All those in favor? Aye.
Oops, sorry. Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions? So we will move forward then with 1 member of the task force. Okay, moving on then to agenda item number 14, Mr. Duran.
Yes, in looking at our schedules for the summer and also the activities that are coming forward to you over the next 3 months, staff's recommending that you go dark on two meeting dates, July 1st and August 19th. The 19th is your typical, would be your typical dark meeting in August. We also looked at what was coming through on the agenda schedules for the 1st, and we also recommended you go dark on that date.
And I think that in years past, when we've done this, we've always done it with the caveat that to the extent things needed to be called pursuant to a special meeting, we would do so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions, comments? If we could have a motion to move staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Cardenas, second by Mr. Jackson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passed unanimously. Move on then to agenda item number 15, which is discussion necessary action regarding preliminary presentation of our general fund fiscal year 2015 budget.
Madam Mayor, may we just have 1 minute while Mrs. Salcido is getting herself organized?
Absolutely.
Mr. Cardenas is going to bring me something to, a piece of candy.
We're getting a piece of candy from Ms. Sanders.
Okay.
And I believe, we do have a copy of your presentation handy, right? Okay.
Yes, you should have a